Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're plunging into a really intriguing, kind of unusual source, actually. It's just a text file titled dreaming.txt.
Right.
And our mission here is to unpack its, well, pretty provocative take on dreaming, specifically dreaming big, and, how that whole idea bumps up against science and, well, reality itself.
Yeah, and it kicks off with let's say, a fairly cynical vibe, doesn't it?
That really does.
It points out this interesting paradox straight away. Like, we always hear dream big as this positive thing.
Yeah. Motivational.
But then it slams that right next to the dismissive keep dreaming. The argument is basically dreams are just dreams. They don't mean anything unless you decide they do. And what really jumps out is this line. Reality doesn't need dreams, but dreams, well, they simply can't exist without reality.
That's a really powerful, thought-provoking way to start. It makes you stop and think, okay, how do we define these huge ideas?
Exactly.
So, okay, if definitions are that critical, where does this text say modern physics, for example, is falling short?
Well, it shifts pretty quickly to challenge physicists directly. It argues they shouldn't just dream big. They have to be able to give proper definitions for the concepts they're working with.
Right.
And the really fascinating claim here is that a major problem in physics and math today is that their very foundations, kind of the bedrock, are built without these really precise definitions.
Wow. Okay. That's quite the statement. So connecting that outwards, how does this lack of rigor, how does it actually show up according to dreaming.txt? Does it suggest it kind of, opens the door for other stuff?
Oh, absolutely. It argues this lack of rigor creates a huge amount of wiggle room. That's the phrase it uses.
Wiggle room. Okay.
Yeah, wiggle room for what it flat out calls charlatans and con men to, well, basically make money. It even hints that, some people might get these remarkable prizes, but the text sort of implies that it's just humans admiring other humans for, let's say, services rendered, and that money's the real driver underneath it all.
That's a pretty scathing take on academic rewards, wouldn't you say?
It is.
It says pretty bluntly, if you invent a particle or theory that makes money, you get recognition, even if the methods are, quote, dirty. And it's not even saying it's malicious intent.
No, exactly.
Just that exploitation doesn't need malice. Which, sounds incredibly cynical, as the author admits. Money is the force that kind of invites corruption into science.
And this really raises a key point. When scientists make what the text calls loose claims, about many worlds, multiverses, reality being a simulation, that kind of thing.
Right, the big headline-grabbing ideas.
Precisely. The text argues they can only make those claims because there aren't proper definitions holding them back. And then they just ignore anyone who pushes back. And the author seems to find that really concerning, especially when those claims turn out to be, financially beneficial.
So the text isn't just critiquing the scientists, but it's even questioning the very tools they use. Like mathematics, what's the argument there?
Exactly. That's also quite provocative. It's skeptical about math itself. It says, look, we shouldn't trust math as anything more than a man-made tool to describe reality.
Okay.
And even then, only to a certain extent. It's very clear. Math isn't some kind of miracle tool.
And it uses that really mind-bending example, right? Challenging the whole idea of reality being made of discrete quanta, these indivisible bits.
Yeah, the Planck cubes idea.
Right. If reality was actually built from these tiny indivisible blocks, these sort of Planck cubes, would Pythagoras' theorem even work? You might just find a plus b equals c, not a squared plus b squared equals c squared, because you can't draw a perfectly straight diagonal line between points if space itself is blocky.
Exactly. It's a great illustration of the point. And look, this critique goes all the way to the scientific method.
Okay.
The document argues that as long as people can just defend these loose claims by saying, well, that's the scientific method and it's bad science to disagree, then they'll just keep doing it.
So it's a way to shut down deeper questions.
Kind of. It warns that if we let folks ignore the really serious fundamental questions that, real scientists should be asking, then, well, we get the science we deserve.
Okay, so to sort of pull this deep dive on dreaming.txt together, we've looked at a source that's, let's be honest, offering a really strong critique of certain science trends. It links a lack of clear definitions to profit-driven claims and even doubts our basic tools.
Yeah, the core message is pretty stark, isn't it? That money, often kind of behind the scenes, can really shape science.
Yeah.
And it challenges us to think about how even our most trusted methods, like math or the scientific process, might actually create distinctions that reality itself doesn't have.
Right. And the text ends by circling back to that phrase, keep dreaming, but used in that negative, dismissive way. Which really leaves you, the listener, with a big question. Does that cynicism accurately capture what's happening in some fields today? Or maybe, is it actually a wake-up call for much more rigorous thinking about the absolute foundations of knowledge? How do we balance those really bold, ambitious ideas with genuine foundational rigor? That's definitely something to chew on.